Whatever else history may say about me when I'm gone, may it say that I appealed to your best hopes, not to your worst fears, to your confidence, not to your doubts.
On behalf of both of us, goodbye, and God bless each and every one of you, and God bless this country we love.
I was always kind of that nerdy little kid that loved presidents and politics and government. I think it came from my grandmother, who was a flag-waving patriot, but I never thought that that kind of hobby of mine would turn into a career. But God has an interesting plan sometimes, and so I was in college at Pepperdine University. Ronald Reagan left the White House and came and opened a post-presidency office not far from where I was living. And my dad raised me to believe that somebody's got to have the job you want, and it might as well be you. So I took a chance and wrote a letter to the office of Ronald Reagan and was very surprised when I got a phone call inviting me in for an interview. I was hired pretty much on the spot for what I thought would be a short-term internship. At the end of that internship, they hired me to be on full-time staff. I served for a year or so as the executive assistant to the chief of staff in the office of Ronald Reagan. And then Ronald Reagan's longtime executive assistant he had had since before he was governor retired, and they asked me to take that role. So you don't say no to a job opportunity like that. And I was so blessed and honored to serve as the executive assistant to President Reagan, working in his post-presidency office from 1989 to 1999. So 10 years, had a front row seat to history, and feel like the luckiest woman in the world to have observed this man up close and personally like that. What was Reagan really like? Well, you can tell by my smile. I'm a big fan, even after working that closely with him for so many years. He was an incredible person. What you saw was what you got. There was not two Ronald Reagans. There wasn't the one for the cameras and then the one behind the scenes. The one behind the scenes was equally as warm and charismatic and funny.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
And gracious and respectful to the people around him as he was when the cameras were rolling. As a young person, I guess I thought, when you're stepping into your first career, like I was when I worked for the president, I guess I thought there was two different paths. You could choose to be strong and successful, or you could be a kind, good person. But working for Ronald Reagan when I was still in my 20s, I learned that you could be both.
They truly don't understand the principles so eloquently stated by Abraham Lincoln. Quote, "You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. You cannot help the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. You cannot help the poor by destroying the rich. You cannot help men permanently by doing for them what they could and should do for themselves."
Ronald Reagan was inarguably a very strong person. He stood toe-to-toe with Gorbachev. He challenged the wall to come down, and the Berlin Wall came down. Nobody argues that Ronald Reagan was not strong. But behind that strength was this warmth and this charisma, this kindness, and just a genuine way in which he would connect to people. And so he completely ruined my idea of what leadership at the highest and best is in wonderful ways by showing me you could be strong and successful and also be a kind, good person. And he was such a great role model of that. He really extended his loyalty to me before I probably even earned it or deserved it. And what a great leadership model is trusting the people around you and giving them your loyalty and believing in them and having faith in them, probably before I even did.
Those of you here at this hall and those of you at home, I want you to know that I have always had the highest respect for you, for your common sense and intelligence, and for your decency. I have always believed in you and in what you could accomplish for yourselves and for others.
But what does that do when you're a young person? it makes you want to never let them down. It made me not want to ever disappoint. It made me rise to the level of his expectations, and I'm so grateful that he set the bar so high, not in a way that I was ever afraid to mess up, because there were plenty of times that I didn't quite get it right, but he believed in me, and that helped me actually believe in myself.
There are still those who believe America is weakening, that our glory was the brief flash of time called the 20th century, that ours was a burst of greatness too bright and brilliant to sustain, that America's purpose is past. My friends, I utterly reject those views.
You know, when Ronald Reagan left office, of course, people ask, what are you most proud of? What do you want to be remembered for? And he said, the thing I'm most proud of is that I made the American people believe in themselves again. Of course, there were great policies. There was incredible things he did during those 8 years, but he really knew that the beauty of America and the opportunity in America doesn't lie with one man in the Oval Office. It lies with the American people. And so by believing in the American people, they believed in themselves again. They started to innovate and invest and become entrepreneurs and take a chance because they believed that America was a place full of promise and opportunity. And so he was very proud that he got to be the catalyst to create this.
Our proudest moments are yet to be. Our most glorious achievements are just ahead. America remains what Emerson called her 150 years ago, the country of tomorrow. What a wonderful description, and how true. And yet tomorrow might never have happened had we lacked the courage in the 1980s to chart a course of strength and honor.
When we look back on the 1980s, there's so many people that go back and say, I wish the 1980s would have continued after Reagan left, because we took for granted in a lot of ways that we had a government and a leader who loved America, loved Americans, and made us inspired to do more and to be part of this picture that he painted for America at its best. America, the shining city on the hill, America's best days being ahead. We all wanted to be part of that, and during the 1980s we were. Diplomacy Ronald Reagan's way did not look like rhetoric. It looked like relationships. It wasn't talking points. It was connection with people. And so he was so successful as a diplomat on the world stage because he cared about people. And he always thought it was important to listen to the other side. And especially if they disagreed with him, he wanted to listen to them because he couldn't understand the other side unless he listened to the other side. He couldn't formulate policies or arguments against that unless he listened and understood. And in fact, post-presidency, they published a book called The Notes, and it was talking about Ronald Reagan's notes that he had kind of scribbled on these little, they look like recipe cards almost, that he kept in his desk. And it's interesting because when you look at these books of all these quotes, a lot of them that he agreed with, and you think, I understand why that is there. But there's some quotes in there and you think, well, that's really odd. Why would Ronald Reagan say that or want to understand that? But the genius of Ronald Reagan was he had to understand the other side before he could articulate his point of view effectively. And so in his notes are not only things he agreed with, but things he vehemently disagreed with, because that helped him understand the other side and formulate an argument against them or advocate for policies that he thought were better. And so relationships were key to Ronald Reagan, and that was his way he conducted diplomacy.
It wasn't so long ago that the world was a far more dangerous place as well. It was a world where aggressive Soviet communism was on the rise and America's strength was in decline. It was a world where our children came of age under the threat of nuclear holocaust. It was a world where our leaders told us that standing up to aggressors was dangerous, that America might and determination were somehow obstacles to peace. But we stood tall and proclaimed that communism was destined for the ash heap of history.
His final quote really to us that he left for us, it was one of his last public speeches, 1992. It was the Houston Republican National Convention. At the time, we didn't know this would be one of his big last public speeches. But he really told us how he wanted to be remembered. And he said, whatever else history may say about me
when I'm gone, I hope it will record that I appealed to your best hopes, not your worst fears, to your confidence rather than your doubts. My dream is that you will travel the road ahead with liberty's lamp guiding your steps and opportunity's arm steadying your way. My fondest hope for each one of you, and especially for the young people here, Yes. All right. Yes. And what this is, my hope is that you will love your country, not for her power or wealth, but for her selflessness and idealism. May each of you have the heart to conceive, the understanding to direct, and the hand to execute works that will make the world a little better for your having been here. May all of you as Americans never forget your heroic origins, never fail to seek divine guidance, and never lose your natural, God-given optimism. And finally, my fellow Americans, may every dawn be a great new beginning for America, and every evening bring us closer to that shining city upon a hill.